Hey guys, thank you for checking out this episode. We'd love your support by heading to patreon.com/freshly grounded. It really does make a difference in helping us continue making this content. And if not, no stress. Enjoy. Welcome to Freshly Grounded, everybody. I'm not sure quite what episode number this is. It'll probably be episode like 191 or 192 of the episode, because I'm shooting a couple this week. Inshallah, but it's a very, very exciting one. Before we do get into it, guys, on the last episode I mentioned that we kind of have a very few close friends to us who are trying to basically rebuild a masjid in Kilburn called Qalam Education Centre, and basically it's been closed off since lockdown. They haven't been able to reopen it. There's about 150 Quran students who can't take their classes right now, and if you see the video online, which we'll link in the bio, it really is in really bad condition, and they want to not only improve it but then also expand it so that we can fit double the amount of people in there praying. I mentioned before that our first ever studio was in that area as well, so we've been to that area, we've prayed at that mosque, and it would really mean a lot if you can donate whatever you can to kind of turn that around, and it would be a huge sadaqah jariyah. So check that out via the link in the bio, the donation link. Whatever you can put aside for it will be absolutely amazing. And we've got a whole other bunch of links in the bio. Like if you, for example, want to learn a new skill, which you should, why not? You can join Skillshare, which is like I think the next big thing when it comes to learning skills. It's like being predicted as like the only biggest, newest way to learn courses as opposed to its competitors. And if you want to sign up for it, you get 2 months free premium with a link in our description. And also Skillshare give a little kickback to Freshly Grounded. And likewise with Audible, if you want to start listening to Audible or anything like that. This episode, guys, of the podcast is with a brother called Yusuf Ali. Now, Yusuf, we connected on Instagram after we put our post on our Instagram. And so we had a bunch of kind of people get in touch with us, and a lot of people recommended Yusuf. In fact, a lot of people recommended Yusuf, actually. Now I'm remembering. And they recommended his channel, which is called Sliced. And Yusuf took the slightly non-traditional approach in his education, which was to follow his dreams and become a chef. He went to study a BA degree in culinary arts management and became one of the few Muslims to go into a course like this. He spent a year at the 5-star One Aldwych Hotel, where he learned a lot about his foundations. And after the 4-year course, now at the age of 22, has grown so much and had so many unique experiences as a British Muslim chef. In his 3rd year, he decided to start up Sliced, a social media brand which aims to primarily help and educate people on how to cook. He's been running Sliced for over 1.5 years now, and it's constantly growing. This series focuses a lot on how meals, what I've seen kind of from the series as well, by the way, is like how not only he cooks the meals, but he talks about each food item and the history of that food item. And I've seen a few people message us about kind of like almost like an Islamic element of it, which we'll ask Yusuf about as well. Separately to Sliced, he's actively in Scouts and the chef for the UK Muslim Scout Fellowship, where he cooks for hundreds and thousands of young British Muslim Scouters. Very, very, very interesting. I'm super intrigued to get into this episode and to speak to Yusuf. So without any further ado, this is Freshly Grounded with Yusuf Ali.
And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded,
No, after that bit.
the brand new podcast
And after that bit?
by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
Okay, let's bring Yusuf into this and give us a quick second. Yusuf, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. How is it going, bro?
Alhamdulillah, it's going very, very well. Jazakallah khair. Just want to make sure that you're not muted. I've had a few issues in the past. I've accidentally muted my guests. Alhamdulillah, good, man. Like I said, we had a few recommendations actually from quite a few people saying that they really touched by your work. And when I checked it out, I was kind of amazed to see how it seems to be work and content that's like underappreciated. And I think that you know what I think we had a lot of people, right, like get in touch with us about this guest situation, and the thing that stuck out was the fact that it wasn't that everybody was saying, you know, you should get Yusuf on it, because we had a few people like that. But what it was is the content that you already had in the backlog, and it showed the determination and the like quality of your content in advance. I think that recently a really good friend of ours, Rush Athletics, right, he has a skipping rope brand, and he's been doing this for years. He's been grafting for years, and he's been perfecting like his ropes, the plastic of the ropes, just everything, just like tries to perfect every little thing. And then when lockdown happened, obviously everybody was working out from home, and for him, his business boomed. Like he became ultra successful off of that lockdown. Not that he wasn't successful before, but lockdown happened, he ended up buying himself a Tesla and all sorts. And I tell people that it's not because Rush got lucky, right? It was because he's been putting in so much work and effort for that moment, so that when something like that was to happen, he had the best quality skipping ropes. He had like the best skipping rope tutorials, but it took for like years and years of hustle for like that opportunity to come. And I think that that's one thing that like goes unmissed. Like people sometimes start slowing down in their content or don't put as much effort into it because they feel like perhaps not many eyes are on it. And with yourself, you can see that you really, really are passionate and care about your content. So what made you start your YouTube channel?
Bismillah, wow. This is something I can talk about for forever, really. So it's interesting. I think the start of the YouTube channel actually came when I was in my third year of university. So I have a lot of friends who did, as I like to joke with them, quote unquote, proper degrees. And they were in like, you know, red brick universities and stuff like that while I was in culinary school. And I found it funny. And I used to like tease them a lot. Like, you know, I have a friend that goes to Imperial and, you know, his dinner consists of like digestive biscuits and stuff like that. And I was like, bro, come on, you're in labs every day and you're like, you know, really doing amazing things. You're so like intellectual and you can't cook. So I used to just film on my phone like what I was doing and send it to a few of my friends, give them ideas and stuff like that. And then I thought, you know what, like why not use the skill I've got and put it into something that I've already, you know, put into like a channel, for example. And that's how Slice started. I literally started using my phone, editing on my phone and everything. And what I've done is I've over time slowly built not only in terms of my equipment, but also the content as well. And just slowly from there. And I think like you said, you know, with your friend that runs a skipping rope company, like he worked at it for so long. And the same thing with Slice, like it worked for so long. And the point where I really started to feel like, right, this is my brand, was where I stopped. I feel like every creative, when they start something, and I see it with all my friends that have started like creative stuff, you only sort of work copying someone else. So if you look at my first video that I did, it looks like a Tasty video, you know, BuzzFeed Tasty. It looks like one of those bird's eye view type videos. It looks like a carbon copy of it. There's not much originality to it. And as I went on, one of my favorite YouTuber in the cooking world is called Binging with Babish, and I copied his kind of style. I know Binging with Babish. Yeah. So I love him, and I copied his style. And it's only at the point where I was like, right, I literally can do whatever I want. That's when people started started to recognize. And I think with this series that I've started of the origin of food, like you mentioned briefly, like going into the history of food, that's something that I feel like not many people have touched on. It's something that I feel like I can really, you know, use my own like passion to talk about like different things around the world and talk about the etymology of certain words, the history of food. That's where I really start to feel like, right, I have creative ownership of what I'm doing. And it's not just something that's a copy of someone else. Because you find that a lot these days, people that start up something and it's just a copy of what someone else has already done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that it's good to kind of base your content, like you said at the beginning, off of what seems to be working and some kind of like template. But then the key is to expand out and to find what's unique to you. And it sounds like you did that at the perfect time. I do really love the element of discussing the history behind a food as you're cooking it and stuff like that. Did you get that idea from anywhere? Or is that something that you're generally interested in yourself when you're cooking anyway?
Yeah, so the thing is like the whole entry into the culinary world, I'm sure we'll talk about it more later, but like I'm quite like an academic person. Like I went to a like respectable school and like I was on course to going into like, I was between English or politics kind of thing. So I was more into that side of the world. And it's only when I really decided I wanted to do what I wanted to do that I went into cooking. So I've never lost that. I was always reading and stuff like that. I think the Origin of Food series started because like when the whole George Floyd incident happened, I think that's when I started. Actually, my first video was around that time. I really wanted to speak out and use my platform, but I'm like, I really don't like people doing performative things, like just you find a brand that just speaks out and puts hashtag Black Lives Matter or whatever, and that is nothing for me. Like, I don't want to be another one of those kind of people. So I was like, how can I actually make a change? So I did a lot of reading. I read lots of books about slavery and stuff like that, and I found the history of fried chicken, which is fascinating. And I was like, wow, this is great. Like, a lot of people have built these stereotypes, these lazy stereotypes over time, but really fried chicken, it was like something that was key to African American survival. And I was like, that's how we do it. That's how we raise awareness to issues without being performative. We link it to foods. And so, and that's one thing that I've been taught from like a young age, is like, whatever you do, whatever, like, you've got a podcast, I'm cooking, you've got someone else as a journalist. All three of us in our jobs are doing different things, but we can all work to the same cause, if that makes sense. So that's where it kind of clicked, where I was like, look, I have two sides of me, the side that cares about things, cares about the community and wants to do these things. And I have the cooking side of me. And this was the perfect way to bring it forward. And so I've done videos on like African-American history, like Yemeni history, Palestinian history, things where I want to raise awareness to a cause, but I don't want to be performative. So the way I can be sincere about it is going down the less political route and just raising awareness through beautifying another culture, if that makes sense. And that's where I really found that people see the sincerity of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, food is really one of those things that connects a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I was even looking into African American history, and it's like, they took so much away from their history, but the one thing they couldn't take away was the food. And like, I'm watching and reading a lot of food historians, and they're like saying that they lost all their roots back to Africa, where they were initially taken from, right? But you see through food, not imitations, but translations of the food that they used to have, which they imitated with the ingredients that they found, in America. And I think it's really interesting. Like, you can trace so much back to African cooking, like collard greens, which is like a really big thing in America, right? That would have been another plant in Africa, if that makes sense. So they just adapted and stuff like that. And you can take all the history away from someone, but like, food is one of those unspoken things that just you internalize from a young age, isn't it? So I thought it was really interesting to kind of explore that and really, for my own personal development as well, just look into. I think it was really interesting.
Were you into cooking from a young age?
Yeah, I started my first dish I made when I was 8 years old. So
Really?
my mum, yeah, so my mum is like a very, mashallah, learned woman. She was studying her master's, I believe, at the time, or MPQH. She's a head teacher. She was doing one of those courses, and she had all her paperwork in front of her. And I was 8, and I brought a potato over to her and said, "How do I cook?" And she poked the holes in the potato, and then I put it back in the microwave. And then I made jacket potato as my first dish. And then from there, I would just watch my like, while I was reading Quran or whatever, like just watch on the stool, like watching on like a high chair or whatever, my parents cooking and seeing what they were doing. And then slowly over time, I started taking over. And by the age of like 16, I'd like pushed everyone out the kitchen and just taken over. So yeah, it was something that I picked up through trying to help people. And I think that's like the amazing thing about food, is like, it's always about giving to other people. So I've always tried to maintain that. And I guess that kind of is what Sliced embodies, like helping other people and like trying to pass on that skill and help people that can't cook, if that makes sense. So yeah, definitely something that started from a young age and just grew in my love, if that makes sense.
My older brother is really into cooking. He's cooked like just since he was young, in a similar way. He was just always intrigued by it. But the thing that he seems to love from cooking is actually the result of it, which is serving people and like giving people a bit of happiness, and then like tasting something and being happy, and that's what gives him fulfillment. Do you get that same kind of feeling?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love it. Like I've had like so many like good like when I have a good comment about food, like it just makes it so much worth it. Like, thing is, I can cook for hours and hours and hours, but it's just like, you can have two people. I like to think that you can have two people that would hate each other or would never want to talk to each other. You put a nice plate of food in the middle, and they'll just come together. Do you know what I'm saying? It has that unifying, beautiful effect that just brings people together, makes people happy. Like, it's a really special thing if you think about it. Like, it really is it's deeper than just the ability to like sustain someone. It does a lot for relationships and discussions and stuff like that,
You were mentioning Benjamin Babish. Do you watch a guy called Jonathan? What's his name now? I mean, if you don't know from Jonathan, then probably you don't watch his cooking. I'm subscribed to him. Let me find it. There's this guy called. Here we go. Joshua Wiseman. Do you know of Joshua Wiseman?
Say that again.
Joshua Wiseman.
Oh yes, yeah. I watch him a lot. You lost me at Jonathan, but then Joshua Wiseman. Yeah. I watch him.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Oh, bro, his cooking videos are just my favorite.
They're
because he's got a humor that's like very light. Like he lightly touches it with his humor. His cooking is very easy, and like yourself, he knows what he's doing. Like he's a trained chef. He's a professional chef. He left his job in the restaurant industry to pursue YouTube full time. He does such an amazing job, and he makes his dishes seem so simple. I really just love watching. Do you know what? I can watch Joshua Wiseman's videos just for entertainment, not even if I want to learn to cook something, which I find really interesting. So I think he's like really like smashed it with that kind of niche there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he used to work for a Michelin-starred restaurant, so he's no joke. Like he knows his stuff, and you can tell. There's only so many videos like people can do and cover up the fact if they're like legit or not, and he's got it to a T. So I think even in like the chefing world, he's respect, because you have cooks that are aimed for home cooks, and you have cooks that are like chef's cooks, if that makes sense. So he's respected in like the chef industry. Like people recognize him as a legit cook, and not like, I don't know, Jamie Oliver, for example, gets a lot of bad rep. I like Jamie Oliver, but a lot of people give him bad rep because he's more like targeted for the home cook. So a lot of chefs won't really listen to Jamie Oliver, if that makes sense. But they're like people like Joshua Wiseman, who are actually trained and like target more professionals, if that makes sense.
Who else has good rep?
I
didn't even know this was a thing, but I guess in every industry there is a kind of like.
Yeah, I mean the thing is,
what
like
about Gordon Ramsay?
Gordon Ramsay is like a Marmite kind of character. Like a lot of people think he's full of it. A lot of people love him. I love Gordon Ramsay. I would pay like any money just to have like to go back in time like 10, 20 years ago when he was like in his element and just work under him. I'd love it. He's amazing.
He seems like a really, really good cook, a chef, and like he's do you know what, Ramsay has recently started in quarantine. I don't know if he started this in quarantine, but I saw 1 or 2 episodes in quarantine where he would cook from home on his YouTube series, right? And do you know what that went to show is that you being 23, you're 23 years old, right? 22 years old, sorry. You being 22 years old, it's called I don't know the name of the series, but anyway, you being 22 years old, bro, and being in this generation, you have such an advantage, even over people like Gordon Ramsay, in that for you to put out content is so much easier than for someone like him to put out content, right? Because he's from a generation where these things didn't exist, these types of technology didn't exist. So when you watch, because I'm not into cooking like any more than the average person, and so when I was watching that episode, I was kind of watching it more from a production point of view. I'm really always intrigued by how people are shooting things and what they use into film. And what I found really interesting is that he has an entire crew at home cooking with him, right? Oh, it's called Ramsay and 10, I think it was called. He has an entire crew cooking with him, bro, and or filming, sorry, like a whole production crew. And when you look at his content, it doesn't require it. It's not like it's good content, but that kind of level of content can now be produced with like one cameraman, or if you're determined enough, you can do it yourself. And so it just goes to show that for him to put out, if he has an idea, look, I want to create this like cooking in 10 series where I'm cooking in my kitchen for 10 minutes, bro, he has to get a production crew in. They're bringing in all the cameras, hiring the equipment, writing the script, directing, producing. Whereas for someone like you, who's 22 years old, who's born in this generation, who's raised in a generation of like technology and stuff, for you already kind of just have that knowledge because of what you've been around to be able to put off the same kind of content. So really and truly, in terms of like putting out content in this day and age, we just have absolutely no excuse, because we're on par with even people like Gordon Ramsay. Yes, he has like a lot of money and a whole production crew he can go to, but you can put off the same stuff by yourself if you have like a tiny bit of technical know-how.
Yeah,
I
I
find
mean,
that really interesting.
it's so true. I mean, like, I remember you just reminded me of when so when I was in uni, they had like a sort of scheme where new businesses could like approach them and get grants. And so I went when I first started Slice, and I said, look, here's my idea. And the way I pitched it to them, I said, look, it's a very niche sort of thing, because if you name all of your favorite, every YouTuber we spoke about was American. All the big YouTube cooking shows are American, and in the UK you have Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver, and I wouldn't say past their time, but they definitely peaked in terms of their content and their interest a
Definitely.
while ago. And Gordon Ramsay's moved on to the more American audience, if that makes sense, and he's become more of a brand rather than a chef, if that and I think it's really interesting, and that's the way I pitched it to the university, and they were on board with it, because they were like, there is room, like the next generation of people are coming in, and things are changing. I don't know if you follow the Golden Balance. Do you know the
No.
Golden Balance? So he's a Muslim Syrian American chef he's TikTok based. He's like, I think he has
Okay.
about 1.5 million followers now, and he became big. And now, he became big, and he's on par with, like, in terms of like being relevant. He's on par with these chefs now, and he literally just films everything he used to film everything on his phone, on like a camera, like by himself. So the age has moved from there being like one or two giants on the platform to, like, it's just there's so much opportunity for, like, so many people to just jump on it and share that space, and they're kind of being pushed off a little bit. Like, I'm watching Jamie Oliver's videos. I still watch Jamie Oliver, and his views don't get as much as the next person filming from their camera. And like you said, they've got huge crews, and they're still producing the same content. So I think over time it really has shown that it's more accessible for people to just jump on the platform and share something, which I think gives a lot of hope for a lot of people in the future. I was reading this thing, and it compared a questionnaire given to students in like primary school like 10 years ago, when they asked them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they'd be like an astronaut or a firefighter. And now if you ask a student, what do you want to be when you grow up? They say a YouTuber. And a lot of people laugh at that and say, it shows how badly the youth have become today. And I disagree, because I think, if you have something good to offer to the world, you can make millions off YouTube. So, we should be encouraging people to do this. I mean, like, you can literally you're promoting Skillshare at the beginning of this video. Like, you can literally get anything you want at the click of a finger. You don't need to have huge production crews and watch TV and tune into a specific time. You can get whatever you want, like, now, So I think times are changing a lot. I think you're going to see a lot more people, especially with the whole Corona thing, you're going to see a lot more people move their skills online and push off these, like, giants that used to be existing on these platforms.
Yeah, the
It's
way
crazy.
that the way people become relevant now is going to be completely different. In some ways, you're right. It's going to be a bit less quality driven in some ways, because people like Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver probably only made it because there wasn't much exposure in those days. You had to be really good. Whereas now,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of exposure, you don't have to be a great chef to be huge in life. You could be like a half decent chef but be really funny, or have something else about you that makes you relevant, right? But so kind of, I suppose the downside of that is that could water down the people who are really skilled. But as you say, longevity always wins. So like the people who genuinely have that skill, over time you'll be able to see who they are, and accolades and experience speaks for itself, and the end result speaks for itself as well. I think oftentimes, because we're in this age of documentation, we document everything we do. But I was listening to something earlier this morning in the gym, which was basically saying that don't just document everything, because if you just let your results speak for yourself, it's so much louder, right? And I think documenting things is a very temporary technique, and also it works like kind of. It works in bits. Like, for example, we just launched these cards that I'm going to go over with you later on this episode. But the way we did it is by putting out like these little teasers where we documented like the parts of the journey, right? But so that is like an example of where perhaps documenting could work, because you're showing like the goings on of like how you got from idea to finished product. But documenting everything could also work kind of in your disfavor long term. So yeah, it's an interesting world we live in right now, man. But it's definitely, like you said, it's definitely, I think, more positive than negative, in that a lot more people have like an equal footing and equal opportunity, and so your skill speaks volumes.
No, it's so true. It's so true. I mean, like, see, the thing is, people these days are just too quick to want the sort of fame and the end product, and they want to put something inside. And that's why I think like one of the most important principles that we're lacking today as a community is like the principle of like ihsan, like seeing something through properly. Like the amount of people that start, because I currently live in Birmingham. I'm from London, but I live in Birmingham because that's where my uni was, and so I'm still here now because, well, you know, economy and stuff like that. I'm probably gonna end up settling here, but yeah, it's really interesting. Like in Birmingham, you see more businesses close than they do open, and it's because what I find is that someone will be able to cook, right, and they'll have a basic sort of business mind, and someone will say, "Your cooking is really good. Why don't you go start a restaurant up?" So they'll start a restaurant up, and they'll realize how much it takes to be a chef, and then it fails in the first year. And I think this happens in so many businesses. And I think if we actually took it upon ourselves to go through like serious routes and not do things as a sort of side hustle, if we went through it properly, we'd be so much stronger as a community. And that's why, like, you know, often, so when I started this whole culinary sort of journey, I was like advised, why don't you go on to, you know, do like a business degree and then go into cooking? And I said, no, if there's an opportunity for me to do something properly, let me do it. So I took the, you know, the 4-year culinary school. It wasn't just culinary school. It had a lot of management side to it as well. So now that I've come out of it, I can say like, right, I've still got a long way to go, but I have these skills now. Whereas what happens is people, they low-key have this dream inside them. I want to do this, but they'll do a different degree to please the community. And then afterwards, as an afterthought or a side hustle, they do this. And sometimes they're successful, but often they're not. And if we really just encourage people in our community to, you know, really go for something, go for what they want, I think we'd be a lot better off. And I think we'd see a lot more talent, you know, emerge within our community, and a lot sort of more solid businesses come out. You know,
100%. I agree 100%, man. And I think it's super inspiring that you kind of decided to plunge, go all in, and do the culinary school. You mentioned your mother earlier, that kind of she's like heavy on education and a very learned woman. May Allah preserve her.
I mean,
how were the reactions of your parents when you decided to go into kind of culinary school instead of the university kind of route?
Yeah, I mean, I always thank Allah. Like I've got a very good support system. Like my mum is, even though we're Pakistani, we always joke about it a lot that we're not traditional, like at all. Like we're very like, you know, we're very different. And even the way my mum was raised is very different. And so like when I had like a week before my UCAS, you know, was due in, like my form, and I just had nothing on it. And my mum looked at me and she goes like, you know, clearly your heart's not in whatever you're, you know, meant to be doing. What do you want to do? I said, I think I want to be a chef. And she goes, well, do it then. So I literally typed in on Google chef degrees, and you know, it came up. I had to be a chef manager. This is the university that does it. And so I filled in, and it was one of the most genuine things I've written. And I think with my dad, for instance, like obviously he's had more of a traditional upbringing, but when he saw like the benefit of what I was doing, and when he saw like how much I was into it, then he supported it as well. So I think, alhamdulillah, I've been very blessed to have like a good sort of support system around me, and they've been I've been quite fortunate. Unfortunately, obviously, a lot of people in the country still have parents that will, you know, push them into a certain way just for the sake of like honor or whatever. But I think we're moving past that. I think as generations go on, you'll start to see more stories of people that can just actually do what they want, and it's a privilege that we will be able to recognize hopefully in the future. Whereas I think like the generations before us would have come to this country and just tried to survive and tried to get like the best job that they could. Whereas now we're all settled, alhamdulillah. A lot of us have the opportunity to, you know, you have the privilege now to start a podcast. I have the privilege now to start and cook. Generation before, we might not have had that. So I think it's generational differences. So yeah, I think we'll definitely start to see more of that kind of thing in the future.
Yeah, I think you're right. We're slowly but surely getting past that now, and we're getting to an understanding where even our parents are now, you know, jumping on board this idea of, okay, fine, you can really chase your dreams, and now there is this equal footing where if you're passionate about something, you can make it successful. So, man, I commend you on it, bro, because as much as your parents have been understanding, there's a huge part of it on you to go against the tide and to say, you know what, I'm going to go all in on this. So I really, really do appreciate that of you, man. I think that's an amazing message for our listeners as well. What's your favorite thing to cook?
Ooh, I'll always go lamb roast. I think lamb roast is the one. Yeah, so I'll take a leg of lamb, I'll roast it up, and it takes me about 2 to 3 hours, because the leg takes a long time to cook. But like I think it's like for me, like when you have something that's nice and caramelized and like just so rich and full of flavor, this is one of those dishes where if you haven't taken a nap after you've eaten it, then I haven't fed you properly. Like it's one of those ones. And if you haven't taken a nap afterwards, I'll make you some chai and then you'll fall asleep afterwards. It's one of those ones. Like it's a knockout dish. I like knockout dishes.
Do you cook daily?
Pretty much. I feel like basically, so I've got twin brothers who are like a bit younger than me, and they're in university as well. So one of my brothers goes to me, I'm moving back to London soon, inshallah. So I want to take over the cooking. So he's taken over cooking for the past week so he can get back into it. And like I've been itching, like I have to, like every day. If I'm not cooking something, it just feels weird.
So other than the satisfaction of like pleasing
Yeah.
others, what else do you get out of cooking? Because you do seem very passionate about it.
I think it's just like, you know what, like I'm a bit geeky when it comes to cooking. Like I often say that food is like art, but a lot of people like they think I'm just trying to load. But you know, I think it really is like quite expressive. Like, you know, the ability and the more I've learned about, like, it's like a blessing and a curse. You know, like it's like 2 a.m. and I just wake up and I feel like making something. So I'll make it and I'll just make a fat stack of pancakes at like 2 a.m. or whatever. Like you can just translate however you're feeling into food. Like that's the best thing, isn't it? Like, you know, if you're feeling happy or sad or whatever you're feeling, like you can just make that into food. And I think that's quite interesting. Like, you know, when I need to take my mind off something, I can just cook and I can just get lost in that, if that makes sense. It's quite like expressive. A lot of people just see it as like a chore, but I see it as quite expressive and like artistic, if that makes sense, in like a weird way.
What's the end result?
What do you mean?
What's your big goal, the big dream?
It used to be to own my own restaurant, to change the way that Muslims see food. I still hold that, but when I went to work at the hotel I worked at, it changed a bit because the cooking I like to do is like the five-star hotel type food. And I found a big part of myself change in Ramadan when I worked a shift from like 7:45 to about 5 o'clock, you know, and I served food that was about £50 a plate, you know, really expensive stuff. People that have come into the center of London to enjoy themselves. And I'm really just serving the higher class. And after 5 o'clock, I took a train back to South London. And I was laying the mats in the masjid with samosa. And I was like, there's something wrong here, you know? Like,
Yeah,
I'm the kind of person.
divide, right?
Yeah, I'm the kind of person that wants to give to people. That's what food should be. It should be about giving. It should be about that enjoyment, and it should be like simple and accessible. Yet I'm going into an industry where I want to be able to cook for people that are paying like £50 a plate. I said, that's ridiculous. Like, I love it, but my end goal changed there. So I stopped wanting to be the whole Michelin chef and that kind of thing. And that's kind of where Sliced came. The first thought of Sliced came during that moment because I was like, you know what, like, I can still earn money and earn good money, but also make that money by serving people and helping people rather than benefiting only the best of society, like the richest of society, right?
Bro, and do you know what else? It goes back to what, I know we keep repeating the same point, but it goes back to the fact that now with YouTube and with other Skillshare, like you mentioned, and with all of these things, you don't even need to now, just because what it is that I think for anyone who ever wanted to be a chef, it's the dream is to have a restaurant. And now you have so many other options which could be the dream, which don't have to result in you having your own restaurant. And so it's just nice to know that you have the other options, that when you're talking about, look, this is the type of food I like to make, but I'm seeing a divide. But I honestly think that you're really bridging that gap just with explaining the history of food. It's an odd concept because you wouldn't think that just by explaining the food that you're eating, you're now having a relationship with it, but you're understanding the food that you're cooking, and it does add a new depth to when you're eating and when you're cooking. So my point is that as much as, you know, I ask that Allah give you all of the success in this world and the next, and whether that's a restaurant, then let that be that. But I think that you, especially Yusuf, have so much to give to the world, man, and I'm really excited to see it. I think you're just at the beginning of your journey. You're 22.
Yeah, 100%. I you know, there's so much pressure, like, about, you know, you see young people becoming successful, and I have a lot of people in my life that just check me and say, look, you're literally 22, like, just relax. Like, I often sometimes feel so, like, I beat myself over it, like the fact that, like, I want to reach that now, and really just like it just takes time, you know. It's whenever Allah will. So yeah, definitely.
You seem very mature for your age. Are you the oldest of the siblings?
Yeah.
Oh, you are. The oldest one's always the mature ones, right? I'm the middle
they say
child.
that. You should see the other one. You're a middle child, and you're probably like the goofy one, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm the goofy one. I've mellowed out a bit since I've like
Yeah,
found
yeah.
the dean. Like I've mellowed out a bit, but I think like in my natural fitra is the goofy child. So, but alhamdulillah, man.
Yeah.
I think everybody like siblings is an amazing thing because everybody plays their role and kind of does what's natural to
Yeah,
them,
it's
and
true.
it's nice, man. Yeah.
No, it's true. We're like a team. Like I'll cook. The twins will like wash up, and then my sister will do something. We'll just like kind of chip in. Like even though like we'll have fights over it, we'll get the job done. You know, like that's what siblings is about, innit?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yusuf, we have launched, at the time that this is being watched now, we've launched a new product, well, our first ever official product in Freshly Grounded. It's not actually out at the time of us recording this, but by the time the episode is out, it will be out. And so you're technically one of the first people outside of like the office to see it, but I don't know if you can.
Nice.
I need it to focus. There you go. Can you see that? Oh no, you can't because you're on the different camera.
I'm on a different camera. It's all right. Shall I pretend I can see it?
No, I'm going to switch the camera for you, bro. I'm going to switch the camera for you.
Oh, cool, nice.
Let's have a look. There you go. Can you see that?
No, I can see a blank screen.
You see
Again,
it in a
I can just
second.
pretend. I'm good at like.
No, you'll see it. You'll see it.
Oh, there we go. Oh, nice. Looks
Yeah,
sleek.
it's
Mashallah.
It's called Freshly Grounded, the game.
Okay.
And it's got a little like personal message from me there. And it says, "Open." If
Nice.
you were here, I would have given it to you. But unfortunately, you're not here. But what we're going to do is we're going to play it
Oh, sick. Let's
in
do
a
it.
new segment. And you're the first ever person on Freshly Grounded to ever play this properly, officially. This is a brand new segment, and you're the first ever person to have enjoyed this segment.
I feel so honored.
I'll explain it to you, bro. So the idea is, that at Freshly Grounded, there's like loads of reasons why I think we started Freshly Grounded and that we continue to do it. And I suppose like the intention for it is always changing in that we like discover a new thing that we want to do. It's really bad vocabulary, but we discover like a new challenge that we want to take on, and it all kind of is underneath the umbrella of creating this or having this identity for us British Muslims and not just British Muslims, but generally like we feel like I suppose Freshly Grounded can try and create that community feel for all of us people who relate, right? And so in addition to that is this game, and what we've done is we've had almost 200 conversations in Freshly Grounded, and so what we've done is we've basically combined we sat down for a very long time and individually written out questions that we feel will allow people to deepen their relationship with their loved ones. And so this is the kind of thing that you would take this box and you'd sit with your parent, your spouse, your brother, your sister, your child, and you can hopefully unlock a level of conversation that you haven't been able to have with them before. And everyone in the team has tried and tested it. We've gone on people have gone on date nights with their spouses, or they've done it on a family gathering. And the idea is that we've written down all of these questions that we think will help you to improve or deepen your relationship with your loved ones. And so that's what this game is. It's essentially like conversation starter. So what I'm going to do is, for the first time, I'm going to play it on Freshly Grounded.
Nice.
And
that's really unique.
Thank you, man.
I've never heard anything like that.
Yeah, we're really, really excited about it. So that's what it looks like there. And what we'll do is I'll pick some cards at random. Now, there's 2 rules to this game.
Mm-hmm.
Rule number 1 is be vulnerable. And rule number 2 is don't judge. Now, that second rule is probably for me because you're going to be the one playing this.
Yeah, sure.
But what I'm going to do is, the only thing I ask is that you are vulnerable, I guess, and know
Sure.
that you won't be judged by myself or the other thousands of people who are watching this. We're just trying to ignore the thousands bit.
Sure, I'll try not to cry.
Yeah. What I'm going to do, bro, is I'm going to pick a card at random.
Uh-huh.
And I'll ask you the question. And the question could be about me. It could be about you.
Mm-hmm.
But here we go. Let's go with this card. So I haven't seen it either. And the question says, okay, fine. You know what? It kind of doesn't relate.
Yeah.
I'll ask it, but I don't think it's that
Yeah.
relevant because we only just met for the first
Alright.
time today. The question says, what took you the longest to understand about me?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I guess that doesn't really work in this instance.
It doesn't,
but
does it?
I see how that would be quite deep for someone that like is like a lifelong. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you one that might be a bit more relevant.
Go ahead.
I might try and like actually...
Find
this
one.
goes against it because technically you're meant to be going random and it's not very good. It's not very good like display of the game. We'll go with this one no matter what. Okay, this question says, what do you know about yourself now that you didn't know when you were younger?
Sorry, can you say that again? The audio just cut for a bit.
What do you know about yourself now that you didn't know when you were younger?
That's really interesting. I guess I know like just how much I can achieve. I think I've changed like so much, and like often my own limiting. Okay, let me rephrase that. I've learned that the only limiting factor I ever had was myself. I think like at every point in my life that I wanted to do something, I put so many limitations to it. Like I was like, oh my God, what will people think? Or I'm not good enough, or that kind of thing. And even when I started Slice, I was like, oh, I've only got a phone. How am I going to compete and stuff like that, with other people and stuff like that. And really, I just like, the only thing that ever stopped me from doing things was my own limiting belief. Even as much as we try and say, I think it prevents us from doing a lot of things, our own limiting beliefs. So I think that's the thing I've learned the most about myself is that like, any barrier I've faced in my own progression has mainly been to my own limiting belief, whether it was anxiety or something like that, and that's something that we can all overcome. So I think that's the biggest thing that I learned. That's helped me a lot. Can I ask you the same question? Do we get to reverse it?
Do we
Or do I
get
have
to
to pick a
reverse
card?
it? Yeah, you'd have to pick me a card to be honest.
Okay.
But I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying asking you, so I'm gonna keep asking a few more. But what I will say though is I'll comment on what you said. I think that I think believing in yourself is one of those things that is so crucial, right? And it can become toxic, right? So like there's people who have a false sense of reality within themselves. And I think that the people who are genuine, like yourself, because you are so genuine and you'd hate to have a false sense of reality and you'd hate to have a toxic personality, you decide to go the other way, which is, look, I'll be realistic with myself. Maybe I can't do it. But it's people like you who, if you believe in yourself, you'll realize how much you can achieve. And I don't think that someone with your character could become toxic with that. And so I think like believe in yourself as much as you're possibly able to, because it will benefit you so much. And I think that the fact that you're 22 years old, I'm only 4 or 5 years older than you, but I didn't have my head screwed on like you do at your age. So I commend you, man.
No, I appreciate that. That's yeah.
I'm gonna go to the next card.
Go ahead.
What is the biggest small thing that you could do today?
What do you mean by that? In terms of like an action, or whatever I want to
it's however you interpret it.
What's the biggest small thing I could do today? I think, for like I know maybe it's just like being quite generic because of what I do, but like I think for me, cooking every day it's like my small thing. I think whenever I feed, what I love to do, and people see often people when you give food to someone's household, they see it as like a obligation that they have to give something in return. But now the people I go to often, they realize just what it's like. Is that there's a hadith actually that the Prophet ﷺ said where, if you're making soup or like a stew, add more water so that you can share it with your neighbor. And so I do that a lot. Like, what's the point in me making one chicken when I can roast another chicken and give it to someone else? So our neighbors aren't Muslim, and I'll just often and they've got loads of young kids. So if I'm making donuts, I'll make more donuts and I'll give it to the neighbor's kids. Like, that it's a small thing to me, but it's a big thing to someone else. Everyone in their own profession or whatever they do has something which for them is small. For me, it's small to make more soup or more curry or more, roast chicken or whatever. For someone else, it's huge. It's big. It means a lot. And that's why I think everyone has in their ability to do something for them is small, but for someone else it's huge. So that's how I interpret that.
I agree, man. I would interpret that question in a similar way, where I would say like, what is a small step that I can take today that like leads me to my bigger goal? And often that could be like anything from like purchasing something that like I have been like putting off purchasing, or it could be like speaking to somebody about like asking them for an intro to someone or stuff like that. So yeah, man, I think there's kind of different ways of interpreting it. I'm gonna ask you 3 more, bro. Okay, and then we'll end it there. We'll end the questions there. I'm trying not to look at them in advance, but it's too much of a temptation. Okay.
Sure.
This is a good one because you're about to tell thousands. Tell me something about you that less than 5 people know.
Ooh, okay. This one's quite vulnerable. I'll tell you, but like, it's kind of motivational as well. I cried my eyes out on the second week of working at the hotel I worked at.
Really?
That's an interesting one. Yeah, I don't tell a lot of people that, but I think it's really interesting because a lot of people like expect the industry is very like, you know, tough and thingy. Don't get me wrong. I still message to this day the people I worked with, my senior chefs, and like I love that hotel to bits. Like I would plug it and shout it out and give its praises, but it is a tough industry. So it's not that I didn't like, you know, it's not that people there were bad, they were lovely, but going from being a home cook and my first year of university to working in a proper 5-star hotel, that's crazy. And like it doesn't even matter like what industry you're in, whether you're a teacher or whatever. Like I think teaching is one of the hardest jobs. Like if you're a teacher that's gone from like just graduating to going into a classroom of 30 kids, that stuff will break you. Like I mean, like I wasn't used to waking up at 7 a.m. and, you know, going into work and handling deliveries and then like working and doing like a million tasks. And we had like 200 to 300 people for afternoon tea at one time. That's a section I started on, was doing afternoon tea, like sandwiches and pastries and stuff like that. And like I was so out of my depth. And so on the second week, I just left the kitchen. I cried. And then my sous chef, who I'm still very good friends with now, he came down and spoke to me and he goes, look, what's up? And I was like, look, I've moved away from home. It's so different from me. I've never done anything like this in my life. I don't think I can do this anymore. And he gave me so much support and love on that day. He goes, go home. I'll take care of your task. Come tomorrow, like the next day. The next day I came and I never looked back. And I just kept looking up, you know. I think it's interesting, like, especially for guys, like a lot of people think that, like, you know, you can't have that level of vulnerability or whatever. But like whatever job you're doing, it's going to take some adjustment. Whatever you're doing in life is going to take adjustment. That was a huge adjustment for me. But and it's also the people that are in charge. If you're in a position of responsibility, right, the way you react to these things. I was discussing with some of my chef friends as well, like on placement year is where our course sees the most dropouts. Why? Because when people have that crack, that break, their manager will just say, get on with it. And they won't give them that, you know, the response that they need. So whatever position you're in, whether you're starting up or whether you're the person in charge of that person, I think it's really important for people to know, like, how much that conversation when people are adjusting can do. And it's because of that amazing conversation I had with that sous chef that I, you know, wiped the tears and like I was like, you know, I can do this. Because bear in mind, like now if I check my step meter, I'm doing like a few thousand steps a day, right? I'm not doing a lot of exercise. I was doing 20,000 steps a day at the hotel, like a day average. The highest I ever saw was about 30,000 steps. You're working like crazy. You need like proper endurance. And I was like some skimpy little trainee chef. It's a lot of adjustment. And whatever you're doing, you need a lot of adjustment. So I think like it's absolutely fine to be vulnerable in that position. It helps you grow. Just don't let these things break you and like, you know, hold it within. I openly spoke about it to the chefs, and it's one thing I've only told a few people about. You know, it's not something I'm going to scream to the mountains, but it's not something I'm ashamed of either, right? So that's an
so
interesting
inspiring,
one.
man. I think it's so important to be open like that and to show people that it's okay, man. It's so easy to become overwhelmed. I'm the type of person that gets overwhelmed very easily as well. So it's important for people to know that sometimes you just have to let it out, and then things will be better. I suppose 2 things. Like, first of all, sometimes it just feels good to let it out, and then you could just brush yourself off.
Yeah,
and secondly,
exactly.
It feels good to let it out so that other people are aware, because people don't always know what you're going through until you tell them. And sometimes that frustration can build up because it's like, why doesn't anybody understand what I'm going through? But it's because maybe you haven't told them. So I think that's really inspiring, man.
Yeah,
all right, man.
Yeah,
last 2. This is going really well, man. You're really opening up, so I'm happy with that. All right.
Go ahead.
Finish this sentence. Dear Allah.
Ooh. Um. Uh. Okay, I'll tell you the dua that I made, which again, it's nothing I haven't told people, but which I made when because I went to Umrah for the first time in October, and the dua I made when I was going around Tawaf and like was really like one that I connected with was dear Allah, like oh Allah, please accept even one plate of food that I've made for the sake of you, right?
Wow.
Because there's an ayah in the Quran which I love, two ayahs in the Quran in Surah Insan which I like live by, which is like in spite of their love for food, they'll give food to the orphans and the needy and those in need, and they'll say, we don't give food to please you, we only give it for the sake of Allah. And like especially in the stuff that I do, like separate to slice, what I do with scouts and stuff like that, like I love to give food to help people. And then I think like it's such a tricky thing when you're doing something for the sake of Allah, right? Like, are you doing it for the sake of Allah, or am I doing it because people are saying, wow, I love your food, Yusuf. Yusuf is so good. Yusuf, your wife's gonna be so lucky. Yusuf, this. Yeah, it gasses me up. Of course it does. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things where, like, if my intention was wrong, I could be cooking and it could be leading me the other way. How
Bro,
crazy
all
is
of us,
that,
man.
right?
All of us.
It's crazy. Like, we could be doing like one of the what I say is one of the hardest jobs I can ever think of is people that recite Quran for Taraweeh, because they're speaking the words of Allah, but they are, let's be honest, it's not like secret. They're getting paid well for it. So while you're reading that, some of course, like the big ones, like they have such a tricky and I know some of them personally, like they have a tricky responsibility. Like they're reading and they're reading Allah's words, but obviously they have the money in the back of mind. It's like such a tricky balance. Everything you do, whatever you do, is so tricky, like to maintain that. I think your intention balances on like a knife edge. So if I was finishing that sentence, it'd be like, oh Allah, like accept the food that I've made for the sake of you. Because when I make food for like hundreds of people and they come and they're like, oh, this is so nice, and they're saying nice things, it really can mess your intention up. So it's like, I think your intention is one of the most like tricky things to manage, even with what you're doing. A lot of people will probably like reach out to you and say, love the words that you're saying and love the things that you do. And you have to always keep your intention straight, right?
Yeah, I think when Sheikh Tim was here a few weeks ago, he told us a really powerful piece of advice to do with that. He said that we need to become a person who criticism and praise have the same reaction from me, which is you're not too bothered by either of the two. And that's like, I suppose, like one of the ways to try and remain sincere and to know why you're doing what you're doing. But yeah, like you said, bro, it's a constant battle when we hear from so many of our pious predecessors of how much of a battle even was for them. So no doubt it's going to be for us. Yeah, very powerful, man. Very powerful. Okay, we're on the last card. We said we'd do 3 more cards. This is the last of the 3.
Let's do it.
Oh, this is a nice one to end off with. What's a win you could really do with right now and why? What's a win you could really do with right now and why?
My win would be exposure. That's the biggest thing. Like actually a win that I had received was actually the message that I got from you guys, because like bear in mind I've finished uni and I've gone into lockdown and I've decided against, even though alhamdulillah I have had the opportunity to work, I've decided against it because like I said, the whole ihsan thing, I'm like, you know what? Let me commit to Sliced. I genuinely believe something good can come from this. So let me grow it. And weeks have gone by and weeks and months, and I'm like, I'm still at that same kind of number that I was at before, and like it frustrates me. I'm like, I need a win. And so yeah, alhamdulillah, when like all my people flooded your DMs and you guys replied, that was a win for me. And like bigger wins, like a win for me now looks like exposure for me, like that's
amazing.
That's all I want now. So this is alhamdulillah, this right now counts as a win,
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people, bro, will like
inshallah
of seeing you will love to jump on your videos, because they honestly they're very very good. I'm a big fan of them myself. Bro, Jazakallah khair. That's it. We said we play a few cards, so that's that. And how did you find it? Did you find that you like
really quite deep? I don't think I've seen a game that's like, or any kind of activity really that's provoked a lot of thought like that. I think especially now while people have been forced to kind of live with each other, where normally we don't see a lot of each other, especially if you're living in like a busy city like London, you're always out and about, and like our family, we're always out and about and stuff. We've been together, and I think a game like that we definitely use, and I think it'd be quite interesting to break down a lot of questions.
Honestly, man, we've tested this out with kind of a few team members and families and stuff, and we've heard some amazing stories where relationships have been, alhamdulillah, positively affected, bro. and big things that were, issues in the past were able to be brought to the table. And I think that just asking a question and asking the right question sometimes does that. And hopefully we've got those right questions in here. So,
Alhamdulillah. No, definitely. I think so. There's a lot of special, and that's a thick pile as well. So I think there's definitely a lot of
There's
soul
loads.
searching to go through. Yeah.
Do you want me to do one for you?
Say again?
So do you want me to do one for you?
Yeah, let's do it. Don't pick an easy one.
No, I'm gonna do it random. I'm gonna do it randomly.
Go ahead.
If you want, I'll get you to read it to me because you're on a different camera to my one, to the viewers. So can you see that? You might have to read it backwards. I don't know what it says.
Oh, okay. Okay, it's the same one I had. So tell me something about you that less than 5 people know.
Should we pick a new one, or do you want to go with that one?
Sorry? Yeah, let's go with that one.
You want to go with that one? Yeah. Something about me
that.
that less than 5 people know about me.
Yeah,
okay. It's gonna take some. It's probably gonna take a minute for me to think of.
You probably share a lot of personal experiences on this podcast,
I do share a fair bit of personal experiences. Yeah. I don't know, man. I suppose because nah. It's a tough one, man. It's a tough one to think of on the spot. Because I'm trying to give an answer that I haven't, because we play these cards so much now. I'm trying to give an answer that I haven't given. I'll probably say that something that probably like less than 5 people know about me is my relationship with my son. Nobody really knows about my relationship with my son because I keep it private. But alhamdulillah, I think when you have a child, that child just becomes your life, man. And so I could talk all day long about my son, and I don't talk about him on a public platform. But I suppose if I'm being true and sincere, then that is how I would answer the question. I'd probably tell you something about my relationship with him, and there's like 101 things to say. So if I try and think of one, I'll probably say that like one of the most rewarding things about nurturing and raising someone is feeling the love back. Like, and that feeling is just it's priceless. Like, you care for this being so much, and you want so much good for them, and you don't want to profit off of any of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't want, like, you want them to have fun, you want them to enjoy themselves, you want them to walk, you want them to talk, you want them to eventually like have a great career, but you don't want anything in return other than the love of that child, right? Like him cuddling me before while he's like trying to have a nap, like makes everything and every sacrifice that I have made and will make worth that cuddle. And it's weird because anybody in your life cuddles you, bro. You're never gonna feel like this cuddle is worth everything. But with your kid, that is like that feeling of them just feeling safe in your arms, or like crying and then once you pick them up they stop. That feeling there is worth every sacrifice. It's worth the late nights, it's worth the early mornings, it's worth going to the gym and just trying to stay healthy so that they can see you for longer and you can be around. It's worth going to the masjid when you don't want to, or you don't want to step out of the house, because you know that your spiritual like success will lead to their success. We know so many stories of the pious predecessors where I remember this sheikh, he told me about a person who became lofty, man. Like I can't remember who it was, but it was someone who became just a real like mountain in this religion. And it was said to him that it was because of his parents, that his parents were religious. And so I know that a direct effect of me trying to be a better Muslim is that Zakaria will be a good Muslim, inshallah.
Inshallah.
And I want that for him because I know that it gives him an easy life. If he at least has his, bro, this life is going to have tests either way. But if he has Islam as its guidance, as his like way to pan through life, then no matter whether he has hardships or ease, inshallah, he'll be kind of good either way. So, yeah, that's probably my answer, man. My answer is like the love I have for my son.
No, subhanAllah, that's really beautiful. And it's interesting as well how like the same question brought out two different responses. I think like this game will definitely like bring out a lot of different responses in people. That's beautiful, alhamdulillah. That's really nice.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you for asking.
Alhamdulillah.
That's what it's about. But yeah, man, Jazakallah khair. Yusuf, I could talk to you all day, man, and I don't even think we've delved in at all into like all of the cooking stuff. But it was nice to kind of get to know you on an initial basis, and I hope that perhaps next time you're down in London, you can come in to the studio. So I'm sure you're in London often. When you are next, just drop us a message and come in and let's do an episode in person.
Yeah, definitely, alhamdulillah. I would love to. It'd be good.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, bro.
Yeah,
is there anything
100%.
that you'd like to say kind of before we lock this off?
Yeah, I mean, it's just an absolute pleasure to be here. If you want to follow me, of course, they can follow me at sliced_IT on all platforms. Inshallah, the people that follow me today are going to be, the original Sliced fans or whatever. Like, they'll be there when, like, inshallah, we take it to different levels. So, no, it's just a pleasure that you're part of this journey. And, no, I really appreciate being here, alhamdulillah.
Bro, the pleasure is all ours. Jazakallah khair, Yusuf. You stay there, inshallah. We'll end the stream and then we'll kind of catch up off air, yeah?
Sure, inshallah.
All right, guys. Jazakallah khair for watching. This was Freshly Grounded, and we'll see you next week. Oh, and grab your cards at freshlygrounded.com/. It'll be the link. The link will be in the bio because we're shooting this in advance. But check the link in the bio and grab yourself the game. All right. Assalamu alaikum.